be alive in this land of ours. Good to drive in this land of ours.
Hello, Canada hockey fans in the United States.
Well, welcome to Hockey Time Machine, everybody. It sure is great to be back in the chair once again. I've been on the other side of the screen for the last little while, but it's kind of nice to be sitting in the host chair every once and again, and especially when there's a topic that's so close to your heart. And tonight's is exactly that for us. It's all about the Hockey Hall of Fame inductions, adding honored members to the Hockey Hall of Fame, a very, very special time for all of us who follow hockey with any kind of frequency. So first of all, I want to thank our perennial leaders here, Paul Patskau and Laura Evans, for almost 2 years now putting Hockey Time Machine on your screens and making it a must-view situation every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock Toronto time, or whatever time it happens to be where you're sitting. And also to Glenn Dreyfus, who is an extraordinary producer. Producer par excellence, as they would say in Baton Rouge or in Quebec, but he is so good at what he does, and really appreciate his works. And when I said it was 7 o'clock Toronto time, our dear Glenn is 4 o'clock out in the Seattle area out there. So great to have you there. For those who are in the Toronto area, time for you to sit and relax. You've been shoveling way, way too much snow. So it's time to relax and just listen to some hockey conversation. For the rest of you, I can imagine you're thumbing your nose and, yeah, Toronto, it's about time you got yours. And well, we sure did. On to the show. So as I mentioned, it's about Hockey Hall of Fame inductions. I'm going to talk about a guy who certainly is familiar to all of us. Wayne Gretzky is, without question, one of the greatest players ever to play the game. And he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1999. It was just after he retired. They waived the waiting period, so he didn't have to wait the traditional 3 years as most players did at that time. Well, Wayne Gretzky is no stranger to the Hockey Hall of Fame, that's for sure. He stops in to see the exhibits. He always has questions, always has comments whenever he's in Toronto as well, and we love it when he comes by. And Wayne has often said, I love every part of the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's heaven to me. I love it in there. So to walk around the Great Hall of the Hockey Hall of Fame, that's where the Stanley Cup is kept, is really special because that's where the plaques for each of the honored members is kept. And it's wonderful just to see all those faces, originally done by Irma Casil, now done by oh my goodness, I forgot his first name, Paul. There we are. Paul Riley does a great job now too, capturing the essence of the person to have put on the plaque. They get a plaque souvenir for themselves, but we put up the plaque in chronological order, in the order of their induction in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And it's great to go around and read all of the captions and see the exploits of all of these amazing personalities who are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I should go back and really reel it back a fair bit. The Hockey Hall of Fame began as a concept in 1943. But it was what we would call a virtual museum. We would call it that today. Back then, they just said we didn't have a home. But it was the first time that they inducted any honored members was 1945. And back then, there was no ceremony per se. What they would do is they would have a lovely scroll with calligraphy on it that they would present to the player when they were in town. Sometimes it was a year or two after their induction, but that's the way that they honored their honored members at that particular time. The Hockey Hall of Fame didn't have a brick and mortar location until 1961, when they moved from where they had been in Kingston to the grounds of the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. That was the very first time that there was an actual building that you could visit with the Hockey Hall of Fame. And it was 2 years after that where the first induction ceremonies were held right there on the CNE grounds as well. They then went over to the Royal York Hotel in Toronto, where the ceremonies were held from 1975 until 1979. Then they used different Toronto locations for a couple of years, with the exception of Vancouver in 1986, Detroit in 1987, and Ottawa in 1991. With the exception of those 3 years, every year has taken place in Toronto. So we want to go back and take a look. In 1966, there was an induction. Clarence Campbell was presiding over things. I want to take a look at a clip that Paul and Glenn have found about the Hockey Hall of Fame back in that day. It was a really interesting time. There's King Clancy, as you can see. There we are. Now, I'm going to talk about the gentlemen who were inducted that year. Max Bentley, Toe Blake, Butch Bouchard. There's Max Bentley. There's Butch Bouchard there. Ted Kennedy was inducted that year. Frank Brimsek was inducted. Elmer Locke, Ted Lindsay, Babe Pratt, who we saw for a moment there too. Kenny Reardon, and surprise of surprises, in the builder category, it was Clarence Campbell. And that was, as you can see, a very large induction year. And they took care of things. And so they honored all of these people with a very, very nice ceremony. And they were given plaques, and some of them got lapel pins as well. And it was just a really nice way to do it. Things have certainly escalated through the years. And one of the people who's going to tell us a great deal about what the inductions are all about is Kelly Massey. Kelly is the Director of Corporate and Media Relations at the Hockey Hall of Fame. And we welcome you, Kelly. So nice to have you here.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm sure the people in the background that are producing this are saying, what is she doing with her phone? But I think I'm set up now. I'm doing well.
It looks great. You got a little bit of a tan. Came back from Florida not that long ago.
Look at you know your stuff. How do you know that? Yes, I did. I finally got to see my dad and my stepmom after almost 3 years. So it was really nice. It was difficult to come back because I came back during the cold weather.
Did you have to shovel when you came back?
Kevin, I can't afford a house. I live in a condo. So I don't shovel. I pay.
Oh, there you You're the smart one, I think. There you go. Well, I was just talking about how the inductions had taken place from the location on the CNE grounds until it moved in 1993 to the location at Yonge and Front, where the Hockey Hall of Fame Museum now resides. And Kelly, how long have you been with the Hockey Hall of Fame now?
I started as a 3-month contract worker in 1995, Larry Robinson's induction. I sold tickets, or tried to sell tickets to guests and to companies, and then I started there full time in 1970. Oh God, in 1996. So, yeah, quite 25 years now. It's insane.
But it's wonderful as well. And you're such a big part of the Hall of Fame. And certainly we've all come to appreciate what you bring to the table and the fun that you make it in the process too. So it's great stuff. Well, we've moved from the CNE grounds, obviously, to the location at Yonge and Front. And with the exception of 2020 and 2021, and we'll talk about that one later on, every one of them has been at the Hockey Hall of Fame. And it's been a really wonderful situation that you've been integral with as well. They're heartwarming. There's opportunities for the inducted members to talk about those that mean a great deal to their journey. And one of those who had a especially poignant time is Mark Howe. We're going to watch a little clip, if you don't mind.
Sure.
About, Mark Howe talking about somebody special to him.
Sure.
I don't know if you remember this, Dad, or not, but just after I retired, keyword there is after I retired 16 years ago, you mentioned that you wished I would have worn your number 9 Red Wing jersey for just one game. I said, your timing was pretty bad. You've never asked me for anything ever in your lifetime, so I'd like to honor your request at this time on a much bigger stage. Dad, I love you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, a special time for sure. Just to
Yeah.
think, Gordy got to see Mark wear his number 9.
Yeah. Mark had told me he was going, he said, what do you think? Is this okay if we do this? And I just thought it was wonderful. And I don't think there were many dry eyes in the auditorium that night. It was a really special moment to watch live.
And just around that time, and I hate to even bring it up, but Gordy was starting to see a little bit of his dementia that eventually ultimately took his life. So, but he certainly understood what was going on, appreciated what was going on. And I think no one enjoyed it any more than Dad when Mark was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's very few fathers and sons were inducted into the Hall of Fame. So it was a special moment. It was a special weekend, like every weekend is. But it was really nice to have Gordy back. Anytime you can have Gordy out at an event, it's special.
Wonderful. What I want to get into now is to talk a little bit about the actual selection of players and builders and officials who are inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Before we do that, let's isolate the fact that there are, in fact, 3 sections to the Hockey Hall of Fame's honored members. Maybe you can talk about the 3, and I can fill in a couple of blanks as we go along.
Sure. Yeah, there's 3 categories that an individual can be inducted in under. First is player. There is some criteria there. The player has to be retired for at least 3 playing seasons, unless there's a unique circumstance. Builders is the other category, and they can be active. We've had like Glenn Sather go in, and Jeremy Jacobs, and Jerry York recently. So those can be active, and then referee linesmen, and they are also have to be retired for 3 playing seasons. And to date, we have 289 players that have been inducted, 112 builders, and 16 referee linesmen.
Wow, wow, wow. Very good. So every year, maybe you can talk about the maximum that can get in. In the player category, what's the maximum number that can get in these particular years, Kelly?
Maximum is 4 male players and 2 female players.
Gotcha. And in the builder category?
Well, the builder category depends if there's a referee linesman voted in. And so if there's a referee linesman voted in, then just 1 builder can go in. And if there is no referee linesman elected, then 2 builders can go in. So maximum would be 8 individuals,
and
which is a lot.
Absolutely. Some years it's the maximum. Some years there are not that many for sure.
Right.
But still, you have to be elected and make it very, very special. So it's great that way. So let's move into the part that a lot of people wouldn't know a great deal about, is how a person gets nominated to get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not just the gentlemen and ladies who are on the selection committee, and we'll get into that in a moment too, sitting around and throwing names out. There's an actual process that you're quite integral as well, Kelly. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the nomination process.
Sure. And actually, now is the time of year where I seem to talk a lot about this, because we're just leading up to some deadlines. The public can make a public recommendation. We call it a public submission, and they can put together it should be a bona fide submission, but someone they think should be in the hall that isn't in the hall. And we get quite a few of those. And if there's bona fide, as I mentioned, submission, then they go, we have to get those by the deadline on March 15th. And then once we get all those submissions, we distribute it to the 18-member selection committee, and through our private confidential internet site. And so that's one way, that's a deadline the public can recommend somebody. But then the selection committee members are the only ones that can officially nominate someone to be considered. And there is rules around that, in that each member can only nominate 1 player, 1 builder, and 1 referee. So they are particular on who they nominate. And those nominations have to be in by April 15th. And then after that, the Resource Center, who you know very well, Kevin, put together a book full of career highlights. There you go, career highlights, and stats and special awards to be considered. And that's given out to each member of the selection committee. There's our president, Jeff Denny. That was last year when he and I had to do this ourselves, because of COVID. I can't believe you have that picture. And so it's great. And so they are, yeah. And so that they get this book that the Resource Center works so hard on. And then we have, and then they have it right there with them, and they have about a month, 6 weeks to study it. And then they come back in June and we have the voting meeting and then the announcement the same day. Perfect.
I'm going to talk about the selection committee for a second, Kelly, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So there are 18 members. This year's a little bit different. The John Davidson was the selection committee chair for the last several years.
Yeah.
He's taken over this year by Mike Gartner, who is a wonderful, wonderful ambassador for the game, and certainly a great ambassador for the Hockey Hall of Fame as well.
Yeah, John was with us on our committee as a member and as chairman, combined years of 22 years. So that is such a legacy, and he was a dream to work with. He was a wonderful, wonderful chairman. Mike's been on the committee, I think, since 2009, and he had a pitch hit for Lanny, who got sick during our last induction in November, and we just saw what a great job he did at the press conference, and he was just a natural person to take over for John.
Absolutely. The selection committee is made up of 18 people, as I mentioned. I'm going to read their names if you don't mind.
Sure.
David Branch, Brian Burke, Cassie Campbell Patskau, Mark Chipman, Bobby Clark, I guess he goes by Bob Clark now, excuse me, Mark Dubois, Michael Farber, Ron Francis, Cammy Granato, Anders Hedberg, Yeri Curry, Igor Larionov, Pierre Maguire, Bob McKenzie, Mike Murphy, David Poyle, and Luke Robitaille.
Yeah.
So those that know the names or know of the names realize that it's kind of a pretty even split between players, media, and business leaders who are involved with the Hockey Hall of Fame as well. Can you comment on that at all, Kelly?
Yeah, it is a nice cross section of media owners, players. It serves our committee well because you get all those kind of influences. And then when Cassie joined, and now Cammy, it's a really diverse because you get the perspective of the players from the female side, which is what we needed. So they take it very seriously, I can tell you that, and it's more work than you think. Bobby Orr was on our committee for 1 year, and he told me it's more work than he thought it was, and it is. It's a serious, it's honoring players and builders and refs, probably their last milestone in their career.
Boy, oh boy, yeah. We've got a great clip of, you mentioned Lanny. It's Lanny McDonald, who's the board chair of the Hockey Hall of Fame. There's a great clip that we have of him speaking to Rod Peterson on a video podcast. Maybe
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it's a great, gives a great idea about the selection committee.
It could not be better discussions. It's kind of made up of three different groups. 3 past Hall of Famers or players. 6 past Hall of Famers or players. 6 from the media side and 6 from the NHL executive side, whether those are owners, presidents, general managers. So it's a great mix all the way across. And that's the way it should be. You're talking about a Hall of Famer, whether it's on the builder side, whether it's on the lady side or the men's. And that should be an in-depth conversation. And you know what? It turned out great. Everyone gets their chance to speak their mind, and so be it.
See, he says it so much better than I do, like everything.
And that's why he's sitting in that chair and you and I are here, Kelly.
Yeah, that's why he's the chairman.
So in the month of June, the selection committee gets together, whether it be in the same room or virtually.
Yeah, we did it virtually for the first time last year.
And
in 2020, sorry, 2020.
Because you're talking about people in Europe, you're talking about people from all over North America as well. So
yeah,
it worked out quite well.
Yeah, we in a way, it was lucky that we had sort of, do you ever master Zoom? I don't know, but we were able to get them all together on screen. But I can tell you that we have two meetings usually. The first meeting is just to go over the rules and regulations, to remind everybody about certain things. And then it's a dinner in the Great Hall, which you showed earlier. And that's a really special dinner. And they really do like that dinner. It's kind of a chance to get together and kind of talk about what's going on with them personally, because the voting meeting it happens very quickly and it's packed. So if they do like getting together, I think, more than the virtual meeting that we had to have in 2020.
I'm sure their paths cross business-wise occasionally, but they wouldn't have a chance to be social together. Some of them who probably haven't seen each other for some time, others who are meeting for the first time, introducing people like Cammy, who we'll speak to in a little bit, will be very nice for her and for everybody as well. So it's just a great opportunity, but a really important time, as you said, Kelly. Once they've had the vote, and it's a secret vote, and you and I and anybody else who is not part of the selection committee and Lanny are not privy to who gets votes, who doesn't, what percentages, or anything like that. And that's part of the dictate of being a selection committee member, is it not?
That's right. And it's, in fact, as you know, we can't tell anyone, like, it's confidential who's even nominated, right, let alone we just can't tell them. And we can't tell anybody that. And that's a confidentiality agreement that each member has to sign, that before they become a selection committee members, that all talks, anything we speak about, anything when anyone gets nominated is confidential.
Perfect. Very good. Well, once the voting has taken place, the upcoming inductees have to have 75% or more. Yeah. And then they summon Kelly Massey to come in here. We've got to get the upcoming honored members on the phone for a media call. Yeah. That's the harrowing time that happens then, Kelly. I can only imagine. It can be really crazy, because although I know who's nominated, I don't know who is voted in until I get a phone call from our president, who's down in that room, and he will send it to me. This player is inducted, and then I start racing, trying to find contact information for that person, because we do want to be able to get a hold of them and let them know that they've been inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame before they hear it on the news. So I'm just looking at these pictures of myself and have to stop looking. Anyway, they're great. Oh God! And now I'm thinking I should have bangs again. Anyway, that's what Lord Stanley's saying too. Lord Stanley's saying, "What is going on with your hair?" But it's one of my favorite days because it is so exciting. But it can be harrowing. An example is that I was thinking back on some of the phone calls we had to make and rushing around. And this was the year Mark Masse was inducted. And for some reason, I thought it would be easy to get in touch with him. So I kind of waited to the last minute because I thought, I'll just call the Rangers, or I'll call someone, will have his number. And we just couldn't get a hold of him. Just could not get a hold of him. And so I Googled Mark Messier, and through the research, I found out that he had a resort in the Bahamas. And so I called that resort and tried to, is Mark there? And got hold of the manager and kind of told him this is a very important phone call. And he got me in touch with his sister, and his sister got in touch with Mark, who was on a fishing boat in the middle of the ocean. And he had a race to the dock, and some bar on the dock. That's where he did the phone call with us. And it was in the nick of time. That's crazy. I know. And it was the people that were watching it happen. I couldn't believe it actually worked out. I was like, oh no, we're not going to get him. It's going to be awful. It's just going to be awful. But we did get him. But it's been phone calls like that. Like Paul Correa, we phoned about 15 times, constantly phoning him. Lanny, like there you see a picture of Lanny. Lanny's waiting by the phone to talk to him. And he just kept going to voicemail. So we got a hold of Timu, who was inducted in that same year. And he'd asked who else is going in. And we told him the class, and one of them was Paul Correa. And Kevin, you know what it's like to work in the media. I think it was 30 seconds before Lanny went to announce it live. We were in the Great Hall waiting for the cue from TSN. And my phone rang, and it was Paul Correa.
And he had said to Lanny, I got a phone call from Timo Solani, but he was just screaming. And he said, then I saw 15 phone calls from this number. And he said, I'm starting to add it, what it might be. And so Lanny got to tell him, but yeah, it's a fun day, but yeah, a lot of sort of on your edge of your seat sometimes.
Well, Kelly, I mean, you're talking about people from all over the world, different time zones. You know, there has to be some challenges when you're trying to get hold of somebody in Russia or in Sweden or in wherever it happens to be to match up with what's happening in North America and Toronto at that time.
Yeah, exactly. When we called Matt Sundin, he was just sitting down to dinner. They had been just opened a bottle of champagne. I think he was celebrating his anniversary. Another time, I think it was Sergei Fedorov. I can't remember which Russian player it was, but he was well into a party by the time we called him. And I don't think he was expecting this phone call. And when we said it's Lanny McDonald, Hockey Hall of Fame, he thought it was his friend calling. And he said, yeah, right, and hung up on us. And we had to call him back. And all you could hear was the party in the background. And we kept saying to him, I know you're trying to celebrate, but can you hang on for another hour because we got this press? Because after we announce it live, we do have a media conference call with all of the inductees, we hope. And it's that we need them it's quite a long day for them. So yeah, you're right. Different time zones. He just kept saying to me, like, can I get off the phone now? Like you could, the party was, I think it was just having a regular party. Then it was raging because he got the call from us.
These are great stories, Kelly. Can you add one more to it?
Yeah.
Haley Wickenheiser.
Oh yeah. Haley was, that was great because, obviously we had read and knew that she was becoming a doctor and going for that, but we had called her and that was one I think that's the only one we couldn't get her and we couldn't get Clark Gillies. And she came out of the meeting and she called Lanny right away and said, I was taking a medical exam and if I turned my phone on, I would have failed it and I can't fail this exam. And so she said when she got out of the exam, like she had hundreds of phone calls and congratulations. And so it's too bad we couldn't talk to her live, but obviously we understand.
It's funny how small the world is, but so we know Haley through the Hockey Hall of Fame. We certainly watched her on TV representing our country. I see her at the Resource Center at the Ford Performance Center every once and again. But ironically, when I go to my doctor at Toronto Western, Dr. Haley is there.
No.
Yes.
You see her there?
She's not my doctor, but I've seen her there. I went to get my booster shot, and there's Dr. Haley. She doesn't use Dr. Wickenheiser. She uses Dr. Haley, and she was there behind the counter. I just gave a little wave. I don't know if she had any idea who it was. I'm sure she gets it all the time. But yeah, imagine the career that she's got going on.
She obviously doesn't sit around. I mean, even during her induction, you could see what kind of person she was, and you can see what different types of personalities are when they're preparing for their own induction. And she was focused and got the stuff done on time, and there was and quick questions and succinct, and that's obviously the type of person she is. And she was wonderful to deal with.
So from the time that the announcement is made as to who's to go in that year until the actual induction weekend, you are the busiest person in showbiz, including James Brown.
Maybe not Phil Pritchard.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about what entails the entire induction gala, the entire induction weekend, pulling it all together, getting people prepared for one of the highlights of their entire life, Kelly.
Yeah, it's well, first of all, it's a pleasure to work on this because it is a highlight of their life. Yeah. We hope it is, and we hope that they and their family have a spectacular weekend. But once it's announced, then I start dealing and working with the inductees, and each inductee is different, and each inductee has a different schedule, so it's in different families and different circumstances. So I start working with that, and then we get a big opportunity to go and visit them. My colleague Clarence Campbell and I, we go and go to their hometowns. We started this in 2009, and go to their hometowns and pick up artifacts, We get them to sign some things. But most importantly, we start establishing a relationship with them in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I believe it's a really important visit because as your next guest, Cammy, said to me when we were there, and it stuck with me, she said, it's so kind of you to come and visit me. Like to take the time and come to visit me, and so I wouldn't have to go there. And it is, and it's good for us too, because then I sit across from them for a good 2 to 3 hours, and I can tell them go through the entire weekend, because it's not just the induction on Monday night. It is many events, as you know, throughout the weekend, and just to sit there with them and get some answers, and they get their answers, and it really helps us. And as I mentioned, build a rapport and a relationship with the Hockey Hall of Fame. So once that visit's over with, and then we start working, and then it's about tickets, and it's about hotel rooms, and it's about speeches, and it's about rings and suits and getting fitted and press conferences. It's a whole gamut of things, and it really starts to hit. I find the inductees about a month out. That's when. Because as Al Arbor said to me, it's like planning a wedding. And it is. It's like planning a wedding, because you are in charge of who wants to come to what event. And most inductees have a private party. And it's a lot of work, a lot of details. But I hope that it's a great weekend for them. But yeah, so leading up to it, it's just a lot of work about a lot of details.
The rapport you mentioned a couple of times, and you have this amazing rapport with the inductees, and you can tell because when they're on the stage doing their speeches, your name gets mentioned so often as kind of the unsung hero of the whole thing. But it's just imagine the impact that you've had on their lives, trying to organize them for what is the one of the major events of their weekend, of their life rather. Maybe you can run through the weekend with us and let us know what is entailed in having the inductees in Toronto for the induction.
Yeah, it is. But I just want to also point out, it's not just me, obviously. There's every week we have staff meeting, and everyone that sits around that table, as you have done, Kevin, know that it's really important to all of us that the inductees have a great weekend. And that's the most important thing, is that they're taken care of, and that they enjoy themselves, and that they have some time with their families, and their families enjoy themselves. So saying that, yeah, it's no longer just Monday. When I started, it was just a couple events. Now it's, they usually come in on the Thursday before, and then Friday we have a press conference. This is usually the only time that the media get the class together as a class. And it's also their ring presentation. So it's a big moment for me, making sure the rings fit, and that, and it never gets old to me when they first see the ring and how they look at the ring, and it's a big moment for them. So they do that press conference, and then we have the Hall of Fame game, and it's at the Scotiabank Arena, Leafs versus whoever the other team might be, and they're sort of introduced on ice as the newest legend and Hockey Hall of Famer, and that's a big moment for the inductees as well, because they walk into a room and they see past inductees and honored members. And I'll never forget Patrick Waugh seeing Jean Beliveau. And that was something that it just blew his mind. I mean, so it's always great for the staff at the Hall of Fame also to have all these Hall of Famers come back. Saturday is probably one of my favorite events. It's the Fan Forum, and it's an intimate sort of event. It's only about 200 people, how many can fit in the Great Hall, and it's about an hour long, and we take questions from the guests of the hall, and it's real true fans that ask these questions. And I'm not kidding, I cry at least once during that event because the questions are so beautiful. In one of these events, there was a lady that had cancer, and we called on her. Luckily, we called on her because everyone has a question. We can only go through so many. And she spoke to Paul Correa about how she had written to him, and then before she got a letter back from him, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she said the letter that she had received back from him just was so uplifting and helped her so much. And so she was able to stand there and tell Paul Correa this, and Paul Correa, like we all felt it, but Paul Correa could really see what his actions had did for someone. It was beautiful, and so many amazing questions that I can't even go through. But if you get a chance to go to a fan forum, I highly recommend it. And then Sunday is the Legends Classic, and that's a great game. It's become a very popular game. Sorry about that. Are you still there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello?
Yep, we sure are.
Oh,
Go ahead, Kelly. Well, we're getting you
Hello?
back on. We'll talk about the Legends Classic game. And the Legends Classic game is Sunday afternoon, as Kelly said. That's when our inductees get their blazers for the first time. It's a wonderful opportunity. You can see here Lanny McDonald behind the bench. He was playing up until fairly recently, and boy, oh boy, he could still wheel. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're the chair of the Hockey Hall of Fame or not. He could still wheel out there. A few other guys, maybe not quite so fortunate that way. But then it's alumni from the...
hi, Kevin, I think, are you still there?
Yeah,
I hope
sure
you
am.
are.
Yeah. Still with me? We're losing you, Kelly. I can see you, but I can't hear you. I'll motor on and then you jump in when you can, okay? One of the highlights then is that the inductees who have already received their blazers during the second half of the Legends Classic game, they come out and play. Clearly not the builders necessarily, but the inductees who are from the players' side of things. And it's great to see them back on the ice. For example, this past year, to see Jerome McGinley back on the ice was sensational. Just to catch up with him, to have some fun and see your favorites and see them having some fun. They may have lost a step, but boy, they sure can pass the puck and they can put it behind the goaltenders with great flair too. So that's on the Sunday. And the grand finale, of course, is the Induction Gala, and that happens on Monday evening. The Hockey Hall of Fame traditionally, forgetting about COVID for a minute, only closes 2 days through the year, Christmas and on the Induction Gala Day, Induction Day. And that's when it closes because there's so much work that has to be done. It was a little bit different this year and certainly last year because we had to postpone it in 2020. We'll come back to that in a moment. But there's so much that needs to be done in as far as staging the entire event. The Hockey Hall of Fame is part of Brookfield Place. That shuts down for all intents and purposes to encompass all the fans who are part of the Hockey Hall of Fame's induction, coming to see the games too, the induction too. So there's so much that's going on, and it's such a wonderful event. Kelly and her team do such a great job. Each of the inductees have what's called an amigo. It's a person from the Hockey Hall of Fame. There you are, Kelly.
Sorry, I got kicked off. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
No worries. I was just trying to fill a little bit and
yeah, you were doing a great job. I heard most of it.
I don't know about that, but they're assigned somebody from the Hockey Hall of Fame to be what's called an amigo, to take care of them through the course of the weekend should they need something special, or to drive them from the hotel to the Hockey Hall of Fame, or if there's an interview being done, these sorts of things. So it's the culmination of the entire weekend, and it's so special. Kelly, why don't you pick it up with the evening itself?
Yeah, so the evening, it's obviously the pinnacle of the whole entire weekend, and it starts off with a photo shoot with the inductees. The Hall of Fame does a photo shoot for us, and then also for the families. So we have the families together, and they can have a nice to be together, and they're dressed in their best because they're going right to the induction after the photo shoot. And then there's a police procession up to the Hall of Fame, and I can tell you it's very exciting for everybody, including the kids, including the adults. Even when Danielle Goet, I still love this, when Danielle Goet, when she came out of her limo, there was a line of, there's a red carpet and photographers and come in, and her cousin had said to her, "I feel like Celine Dion." So it's very exciting for them, and it's very exciting for us because this has been months of preparation, and so they come in and we put them in a little green room, and then they I can tell you most of them, all they're thinking about is their speech. Is getting through that speech and making it as impactful as possible. There was one moment I wish I would have taken a picture of this, and I didn't. It was Mike Modano. He had just had twins, and we sort of get their families out of the green room so we could take a picture just of the class. And he was feeding the twins, like both hands, double duties, both hands feeding them. And he said to me, "What? Don't you see this usually every year?" I said, "No." I wish I would have gotten a picture of that. But so then the show begins, and we seat them, and it's really about them, and TSN puts on a great show. All the people there, Sam and Jake, and the show begins, and then it's hopefully about 90 minutes. We do tell them, try to keep the speech to 5 minutes, but then we also understand that this is a big moment for them, and we try to keep it to 5 minutes as possible, just so it's an enjoyable show to the viewers. But yeah, and then I get to also sit there and watch and listen to these speeches, which I have some favorites, and the speeches are amazing. They all do so well.
I have to laugh. You said the time parameter is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Have we ever had one 5 minutes or under?
I remember Patrick Waugh saying, "Mine is 4 minutes and 38 seconds." And I was like, okay. But some of them get overwhelmed, like Mark Masse. He just gets overwhelmed. And I don't know if we've ever had, I think there was one, maybe there was one that was very, very close to, I remember Ed Belfour telling me, "Don't have to worry about me. Like, I'll be up and down. Like, that's it." And I think he was pretty close to 5 minutes. He's not much of a speaker.
And one of the things that you mentioned is having family and friends there. Pardon my asking, but how many tickets are they allotted for their purposes? I'm talking about the inductees. Yeah,
the inductees, well, it depends. I mean, last year it was a little different. It changes, usually 16 to 18 tickets they get, and it seems like it's never enough for them. So we do keep some other seats available that their friends or families can purchase. But yeah, so it's usually about that. I remember, I keep going into these stories. I hope I'm not boring.
Great.
But Danielle Goet, I said to her, "Oh, and we give 16 or 18 tickets," and she's like, "Well, how much are they?" And I said, "Well, they're 500." And she said, "Do I have to buy all of them?" And I said, "No, you don't buy any of them. We give them to you." And she's just like, "What?" Yeah, that's great.
Very special. Have you ever had anybody who missed one of their assignments, maybe didn't show up for fan forum, or couldn't find their way to the Legends Classic game?
We had a couple that had a big party the night before, and it was on the edge of our seats. Are they making it? And that's where the amigos come in. Like, where are they? Where are they? But no. Well, Timo Solani and Paul Correa were an hour late for the press conference, and Paul says that's Timo's fault. But they were on a private plane, so we were just happy when they got there. I don't think. I mean, I'm trying to think. I think it was close a couple times, but I don't think anyone's missed anything.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And what about, have any of the inductees forgotten their suit or their dress or their tie or their shoes or anything, and there had to be a last-minute scramble?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Walter Bush, and I love him dearly. He was one of my favorite people. I loved his voice. He, during the Friday night, it was Saturday night. It was Saturday night then. The Hall of Fame game was Saturday night with the Leafs, and I met him in the lobby of the hotel, and he had a cold that weekend, and his cough syrup bottle exploded in his suitcase.
Oh no!
Yeah, and I had sent him all the tickets prior to that, so all of his hockey tickets were stuck together.
Oh no!
And he was like, "What do we do about this?" And he said, "And also, I forgot my tux. So what do I do?" And so it's like, So my assistant and I were like wiping down the tickets, and I think I did. I got his amigo. I got him his amigo to a suit fitting at a local tux shop, and he just rented it for the evening.
Oh,
and we got it. But yeah, but he's such a sweet man. Like, what can you know?
Absolutely. It's contributed so much as a builder as well. But
yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but we've had that, like, people forget their tickets at home. That's why I always say, why don't we just leave? I'll give you your tickets here. We'll just leave, we'll just leave, we'll just leave it then, and then I know you have your tickets.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So we've alluded to it, but let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, as it were. COVID comes along and throws all the plans askew. And the 2019 inductees don't get an induction gala, as it were, in 2020. It gets postponed. The decision's made to hold it in 2021. You had to pivot like you've never pivoted before, Kelly.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about moving the induction from the Hockey Hall of Fame to the Meridian Hall, about explaining to the inductees, I don't know if there was a challenge, but in explaining that their induction won't be in 2020, but it will be solo. Well, when I say solo, it will be in 2021, and we won't be inducting any at that time. Maybe you can follow that up a little bit, all right?
Yeah, it was very disappointing where we couldn't have that. Like disappointing, the whole year was disappointing when we couldn't have the induction in 2020. All the inductees understood it, obviously. The main question was, do you think we'd do it virtually? And we didn't really want to do it virtually. We wanted them to experience it like every other class has experienced it, which is live and the people there, and it's exciting and you can feel the energy. So we didn't want to do it virtually. And then the decision was made, and I'm very happy that we weren't going to do a voting in 2021, so they would stand alone. They were happy about that. And I am very happy that we got this induction into the books, considering what's happening now in Ontario, because our second date was going to be February, end of February. I'm thinking around the Olympics, but I'm very happy that we did it now. We did it back in November. But yeah, going to the Meridian Hall, we've had that induction at the Hockey Hall of Fame since we opened in '93, and then expanded it in 2007 to include Alan Lampert Galleria. And so we pretty well knew, we had to, it's still a lot of work, but we kind of knew the way the program looks and how it runs and what we need to do. And moving it to Meridian Hall was a whole different animal. It was a lot of work, and not only just a whole different animal, a whole new venue, a whole new everything, but now COVID protocols and health and safety measures. And it was a lot of work for all of us. I think all of us were very happy that we were able to induct that class.
And it went off seamlessly, at least to the outsider anyway. I can imagine.
That's nice to hear.
I can imagine that in the bowels of some of those meetings, people were pulling their hair out. But it was so well done, looked great on the screen, and the inducted honored members were so appreciative, and just their speeches really reflected how pleased they were to have such a special evening, and a special evening for themselves as well.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. I'm glad that it looked good, because we all worked so hard. Yeah, and it was nice. It was different in the sense that we were in a theater, an actual theater, and you could kind of feel the difference of that. We have a rehearsal in the morning, the Monday morning, with the inductees, and so they get a chance to see the stage and try out the teleprompter if they want to use that, and it had a different feel to it. Now, I know that some people prefer it at the hall because you get to be around. It's more of a mingling. Of course, last year we couldn't really mingle, but what the Meridian Hall, what it gave us during COVID, was that we could social distance. We could sell more tickets than we could have if we had it at the hall. It just wouldn't have made sense to have it at the hall. So I don't know what we're going to do this year, but we sort of know what we're dealing with Meridian Hall, and they were great to deal with. But we'll see what happens. I
should explain. So traditionally, when it's in the at the Hockey Hall of Fame and in the enclave there, the concourse there are seats right in front of the stage, but there are also a lot of fans who just traverse the Hockey Hall of Fame itself, can look at the artifacts, can listen at stand-up tables, can get some great food there and some drinks there as well. To move it across the street, it's kitty corner. It's some of you will know it as the Sony Center, or going way back, the O'Keefe Center. I guess it was, what was it? There was another one somewhere, the Hummingbird Center in there too.
Oh, right.
But it's a soft seater. It's a wonderful theater as well. So it made it a little bit different, made it very special. No better, no worse than having it at the Hockey Hall of Fame, just different for sure. But it really was a special evening.
Yeah.
So Kelly, you talked about some of the special inductions and inductees that you've met along the way. Talk about some of the ones that just you as a hockey fan touched your heart or were especially great to deal with, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, of course, Mary Lemieux, because I had just started really there, and he was like having Elvis Presley in the building. People were screaming when he walked by, and that was kind of like a first introduction to an induction for me, like in the capacity that I work now. So that was special. I can't honestly. When the first year the women were inducted, that was special too, because the women game had come so far. The Hall of Fame representing the women had come so far, and that was it was an honor to be a part of that. Paul Correa's induction was great. I honestly, God, I don't think I can really name one that really felt like. I mean, I guess I'm a kind of a Leaf fan, so Matt Sundin was kind of neat to meet him and hang out with him for a little bit. So, but they're all wonderful. They really are, and every inductee, I really couldn't say a bad thing about any of them.
You know, you mentioned 2010, which was the first year that the bylaws were changed to allow women to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame as well. And that was a momentous time, because to that point, not that you couldn't have a woman inducted, it just wasn't actually in the bylaws, and with provisos for, as you mentioned earlier, the possibility of having 2 per year and that sort of thing. That year, 2010, 2 women, 2 wonderful women, 1 American, 1 Canadian were inducted. Cammy Granato, who we've talked about a little bit before. We're hoping that we'll talk to her in the next little bit. And Angela James, who was part of the Canadian game as well. Maybe you can just elaborate a tiny bit more, Kelly, on how special it was to open the doors to women, and the way that the media would react to having women inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame too. It wasn't a precedent setter, because the IIHF had already inducted women, and the U.S. Hall of Fame had as well, but it was for the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it was, and it's a credit really to our president, I think, Jeff Denemy, and the selection committee members, that how we handle this. And I think I've heard from all the women that have been inducted since that they think we've got it right. But I was actually able to be in the room then when Jim Gregory and Bill Hay made the phone call to them, and I don't think I'll ever forget their reaction. Angela James it's just like I can just tear up thinking about it. Was wonderful, just amazing, like a real groundbreaking moment that this woman was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, especially now that I know her story leading up to her Hall of Fame induction. And then Cammy, I don't know if you'll get a chance to talk to her about what it was like on the other side of her phone call, but it's just when I had met her in Vancouver later on when we were going over the Induction Weekend, I asked her about the phone call, and it just sounds like an amazing moment for her and her family. They happened to be together. I don't think she was expecting this. I don't think Angela was, because just the reactions were like just dumbfounded, silence. And just you could see that this was just a moment that they hadn't even prepared for. And then working on their induction, what was funny is that the questions were totally different than the men's questions. Like they were very concerned about different things than the men were concerned about, and it was kind of an eye opener for me as well about what to expect with a woman. And now that that they're very, they're very grateful for anything that we provide for them or give to them. They're as are the men, but they're just a little more grateful, I think.
Very good. Let's extend that a little bit for a moment. We've got we talked about Cammy being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2010. She's now on the selection committee, and that was also precedent setting. We had Cassie Campbell Patskau, who had joined the selection committee previous, but now we've got 2 women on the selection committee. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that that's had and how it maybe even changes the complexion of inductees?
Yeah, it definitely. It's wonderful to have Cammy on now. She'll be a part of her first meeting in June. I had a conversation with her just recently about what to expect and sort of the policies and rules and regulations around being a member. And what it gives us is a unique it's a unique. She could bring her and Cassie bring a uniqueness to the committee that they understand the women's game and understand how the women's game work more than the men on the selection committee would understand. Now, that's not to say that Cassie and Cammy have to nominate a woman every time. They don't. Like, they can nominate who they want to nominate. But we felt like we were lacking that experience and that sort of unique vision that they have, that a female that played within the system would have, that the male selection committee members wouldn't have. And we certainly found that with Cassie, and I'm sure we're going to see that with Cammy.
So we're gearing up for 2022.
Yeah.
We don't know what COVID's going to bring or not to bring, but we still have to move forward one way or another. You mentioned the selection committee getting together in June. Do you have a date for that by any chance, Kelly?
Yeah, the voting date and we announced on the same date is June 27th.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then, all things being equal, when will the Induction Gala take place?
The induction will start Monday. It'll be Monday, November 14th, but it'll be the Friday before that the whole weekend kicks off.
Fantastic. We look forward to it. Kelly, this has been so great for you to
I hope
peel
so.
Peel back the onion skin layers here and tell us
all the secrets.
The Hockey Hall of Fame induction and all the things that go into it. And I think it gives our viewers and listeners an appreciation of how much work actually goes into it. If people could only see you at the end of that induction weekend, just exhausted. I don't mean in a negative way. I just meant almost like take that deep breath. It's over. And now we have to start next year as well. And there you are, taking a deep breath right there, Kelly.
Talking about something.
I thought it was oxygen, not a microphone. There we go.
Yeah, I think that's what we all are like, especially this year. We all took a deep breath that we were actually able to induct this class, 2020 class, and that it seemed to do. We did okay. But I'm telling you, the next day I am in pajamas ordering Chinese food.
Absolutely, and rightfully so. There we go. Well, it's been great to hear from you, and we don't hear from Kelly Massey often enough. This has been wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Kelly.
Oh, Kevin, before you let her go,
yes,
forgive me for injecting myself, but I want to share one photo.
Yes, great.
Oh, fantastic.
So if you will talk about that for another minute, and I'll excuse myself.
Yeah,
because this was the best story of the whole evening.
Yeah, that was the lady that Paul Correa had. I mean, it was such a nice moment. That's the lady that Paul Correa wrote to. She'd written to him saying she was a huge fan, and then he wrote just an incredible letter. I can't remember word for word what it was, but it gave her hope, and it gave her, I guess, a little more strength to push forward through this. And that's what Paul is. He is that kind of a person. He is a special, special human being. And he is all about visions and like visualizing yourself and doing things and positive energy. And that's what he brings. And that's what he brought to that lady.
Kelly, do you know where Michelle was from by any chance?
Oh, I don't. I think she was from Ontario. I don't remember.
I just remember how touching that was and how touched Paul was, as well as Michelle and her partner as well.
Yeah, and in fact, after that, he made sure that she got tickets to the induction.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great, because she only had fan forum tickets at that time.
Right, that's right, yeah.
Right. It's funny, I think about Paul Correa spending his days surfing these days. And,
I know. That's where he lives, in the beautiful area, and he's a big surfer. And
love it. A little bit
he has a lovely
hockey and just loving his surfing life. Wonderful.
Yeah, his one question was, could he bring his dog? And he did.
Did he really?
Yeah. Not to the induction, but the dog was here all through the weekend.
I can imagine Kelly Massey with an extra tuxedo just in case, a tie, and carrying a dog carrier under her arm while she runs around too. Wouldn't surprise me, Kelly. Anyway, well, listen, as every year we look forward to that special weekend, hearing who the new honored members are going to be, the inductees. It's a highlight of the hockey year, and that weekend is certainly the highlight of many people, including me, including my life. It's a real special time just so look forward to it because it's the culmination of so many dreams and of so much work as well at the same time. So Kelly, thanks a million for joining us.
My pleasure, Kevin. So
Chinese
nice.
food and the pajama bottoms that you're wearing, I'm sure. And
Yes.
and we'll
You know
see
me.
you in the halls over the next little while. All right.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Thanks
This
a
has been
million,
fun.
Kelly. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, there we go. Wow. Well, unfortunately, our guest hasn't shown, and that's too bad because she probably got busy. As we know, Cammy Granato, who is an honored member of the Hockey Hall of Fame. She's on the selection committee, but she's also a scout for the Seattle Kraken. So she's probably sitting in a rink somewhere making notes on prospects that they can draft next June as well. You never know how it's going to go. But anyway, it's unfortunate that Cammy couldn't join us, but we had a real treat to talk to Kelly for an hour and find out about the Hockey Hall of Fame and all the trappings that go with it to make it such a special time. So we'll look forward in June to hearing the announcement on who the ones are this year. Let the debates begin. It always spawns great media attention and social media attention of who got in, why did they get in, why didn't this one get in, how close were they, all that sort of thing. It's frustrating at times, but it's also fun for those of us who follow hockey so closely. And then, of course, as Kelly said, in November, we see them all dressed up and inducted as honored members of the Hockey Hall of Fame. So I'm going to throw it back to Paul and Laura if they're there, and Glenn if you're there as well. And we can talk a little bit for a few moments' time, and then we can say goodbye and head off there and let the overtime conversations begin. So there we go. Laura, thanks for trying to get hold of it. I may have sent you the wrong email address, but
I tried her a couple times and then it
Yeah.
kept bouncing back, and I kept trying it again.
there we
So
go.
nothing we can do.
Nope, it happens every once and again, and so we have conversations in a different way and move forward that way. But I thought it was really interesting to hear Kelly talk about things that none of us get a chance to see. We may hear a little bit here and there about what it takes to put on an induction, but to actually hear the person who's making the phone calls and getting the tickets ready and things like that made for a special show as well.
Yeah, she was amazing. Like, I've never heard any of those stories before. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it was all new for me, and it was amazing.
Perfect. And Glenn, that was great to pull out the Michelle picture. Boy, oh boy, you are, as I mentioned earlier, 12 fingers of fate. There we go. Most people have 10, but Glenn's got an extra 2 to make this show go that much smoother. There we are. Oh, put your mic on, Glenn.
And you're muted, and I can't unmute you.
There we go.
There we go.
That's Kevin's special way of saying he thinks I'm some type of mutation.
Those 2 extra fingers are often directed my way, Glenn. Now you stop that right now.
So Nick Kotsanika on NHL.com wrote about this encounter, and I'll read you just the very beginning of what he wrote about the 2017 fan forum about Michelle. She had something to say to Paul Kariya. You told me if I could see it in my mind, believe it in my heart, and commit to it with everything I had, that it would happen. I had some rough times. I shouldn't be here, and I am. You inspired me. And
Wow.
that's what she said to Paul at the 2017 fan forum. And Kevin, I very much was touched by you and Kelly sharing that story and bringing it to light, which I hadn't heard before.
Well, there's so many of those kinds of stories that never bubble to the surface. That one's a special one. I know that she didn't necessarily want the publicity because it involved her health. But having said that, it was such a commanding story. She asked permission of Paul Kariya, and Paul asked her permission to use her name as well, and sent it off that way. Kelly did a great job in getting the story out there. But there's often those kinds of stories. She talked about how Mario Lemieux was like a rock star. I can remember his induction quite clearly. There were people who drove for hours and hours, up from Pittsburgh, up from Florida, different places, so they could sit and watch the fan forum and see their hero. And as he walked in to get his seat on the stage, the place went crazy. You would have thought it was Paul McCartney, Bono, and Elvis risen from the dead all there. It's just wonderful to see. There's a great story too, if you don't mind my dropping another name. Sorry. One of my favorite stories is a Wayne Gretzky story. Wayne is, as I mentioned at the top of our program, arguably the greatest player of all time. But he's modest, and he also knows his value, but he loves to come to the Hockey Hall of Fame. So there was this time where he wanted to come to the Hall of Fame, and he wanted to bring his son. So he put a baseball cap on and pulled it down low, pulled his collar up high, and stood in line to buy a ticket to go in. Well, somebody from the hall noticed him and said, "Come, Wayne, come on." They were trying to keep it quiet. "Come on." And Wayne insisted on paying the ticket to get in. So they got in and they looked at all of the exhibits and read everything they could. And Wayne was explaining to his son, who was probably 11 or 12 at the time, about who this person was and why this person was important. They really had a great 2 hours. And then his son said, "Dad, I want to play the games." So they went to the game area of the museum. It's a really cool interactive area. And one of the games that they have there is shooting on the virtual goaltender, the virtual NHL goaltender. So you get 5 pucks and you shoot. So the son goes first. He scores 4 out of 5 goals. He says, "Dad, how about you?" And no. And "Come on, Dad. Come on, Dad." Okay, sure enough, Wayne takes his first 3 shots, doesn't score. The guy from the Hall of Fame didn't realize who it was, came over to him and said, "Look, sir, maybe if you put your hand down a little bit lower on the shaft, I think you might have more success." Wayne just raised his hat a little bit, put his collar down and smirked and said, "There's an exhibit over there with 802 pucks. Maybe you can get one of those and maybe I'll have more luck with that one." and everybody laughed. And then they realized it's Wayne Gretzky right there. He had the greatest laugh at that time as well. And his son just broke up. He beat his dad on the virtual goaltender. So there you are. But there's lovely, lovely stories that happen all the time. It's, I have to admit that I work there, so I'm a little bit biased, but it's a really special place. The biggest shame of it all, and it's not just the Hall of Fame, but it's that museums, restaurants, different places like that in Ontario are closed. And so the Hockey Hall of Fame is closed entirely right now. Hopefully we'll reopen at the end of January. But because of COVID, people are cautious about coming back. There's a limited number of people that can be in the museum at any one time. So, it's too bad. It's really unfortunate, but it's just the way of the world right now. We're hoping, as Kelly said, we're hoping that all will go fine with the Induction Weekend in November and we can move forward, whether it's at the Hockey Hall of Fame proper in Brookfield Place, or whether it's across the street at Meridian Hall, or maybe some other venue. There's always a contingency plan, but it's a special place, and that is the most special of weekends at that special place.
Exactly. We're looking forward to it this year in November.
Yeah, we sure are. Keep our fingers crossed. There's always some great surprises there, and I'm not sure who off the top of my head is eligible, but there's players who are eligible after that 3-year waiting period. There's other players who have been eligible for 20 years, and they're still waiting for that phone call that will come from Mike Gartner this year, or whoever it happens to be, Lanny McDonald and Mike Gartner this year, or whoever's manning the phones at that particular time.
Kevin, if you're willing, I'd like you to expand on that. You and Kelly raised what I thought was a really interesting point, in that the Hockey Hall of Fame does not announce who is up for consideration to be a Hall of Famer. Other leagues, I know baseball and football, they do announce who is up for consideration. They'll announce a list of 15 or 20 names, of which somewhere between 0 and all of them will eventually make it. Do you happen to have any insight why hockey decides to do it differently?
It's been in the bylaws for years and years and years, and I know that the president and CEO, Jeff Denemy, whose name has been mentioned a couple of times, has carried it over from previous administrations too. They really like that because that way there's nobody who's on the precipice but not quite there and disappointed. They just don't know. We know the ones who get in, but not the ones who aren't fortunate enough to be voted in. Now, the website, hhof.com, does give a list of players who are eligible, not nominated, but eligible, with the number of awards they've won or all-star games they've played in or Stanley Cup championships or whatever it happens to be. But it doesn't mean that they're nominated necessarily. And as Kelly said, the nominations have to come from either the public to the selection committee and then the selection committee to the meeting itself. And so even if they can all just nominate one person, there are only 18 people who are going to be discussed over that 2-day period. So it's kept really tight. And as she mentioned, there's a note of confidentiality that's signed by each of the selection committee members as well. So whether it's the right way or wrong way is debatable for sure, but it's the Hockey Hall of Fame way, and they've chosen to go that way. And the people in the selection committee, the members are not allowed to talk about, boy, oh boy, came so close by having this person or that person getting in. They're not even able to say that. They're only able to congratulate those who actually made the grade and got 75% of the vote or more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I got, except for saying, Kevin, next time you see Kelly, if she's wearing bangs, you'll know why.
She is a lovely person. We've worked together for a long time. And I talked about that amigo role. That was, if you don't mind, I'll expand on that a tiny bit. But it's somebody from the Hockey Hall of Fame who accompanies each. There's one person assigned to each of the inductees. And I was privileged to do it for a number of years. And so I think about, the first one I was with, I think was Craig Patrick. Brian Kilray was one. There was a couple of others as well, Rod Langway. But the one that was most special for me was Roger Nielsen. Roger Nielsen had been diagnosed with cancer for some time before, and he was inducted as a builder into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I was assigned to him. He's a quirky man, but the most wonderful man, and just a heart of gold. And we really hit it off well. He had a wide array of wacky ties. He didn't know which one he was going to wear at the actual induction ceremony. In fact, all of those ties are now in the Hockey Hall of Fame. But we spent a fair bit of time together, talked quite deeply about our beliefs, about those who are involved in our lives. Found a great deal about him, and I was a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, as some will know already, although he did coach almost every other team in the league. But anyway, just a lovely, lovely man. And so he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and in his speech, and I wish I could remember it word for word, but I'll paraphrase it. He mentioned something about how he knows that through his life he's going to go to heaven. And he knows, well, one thing I do know is I won't be seeing Harold Ballard up there. we all broke up. And so he went back. He was an assistant coach with the Ottawa Senators at the time. And one of the wonderful things that happened, he was quite ill at that point, and his life was coming to an end, and he knew it and had accepted it. But one of the great things that happened was that the Ottawa Senators, and I wish I could remember who the coach was at the time, and I can't remember. But anyway, the coach stepped aside and allowed Roger to be the head coach for one game, which gave him 1,000 in the National Hockey League. Wow. And so he was able to reach that milestone. He still was involved with the team, but at some point he had to pull back. He did go and see the boys during the playoffs and gave them a really wonderful speech that he sent me at one point, and it was stirring and really motivated the boys on the team as well. They didn't get to the Stanley Cup that year, but they did quite well. And it wasn't that long after that we lost Roger, and it was really a shame. But one of the nice things that happened was he had a lady friend from Dallas. Her name was Nancy. I don't know whether she was a girlfriend or just a friend. It doesn't matter. But she contacted me and said, Roger, in his notes, made sure that stipulated that you be part of the family at the church, and we would love to invite you to the funeral. And so here I am driving up to Peterborough, It's actually quite a nice day. And Gary Bettman, all the who's who of the National Hockey League are there. And here I am sitting with the family, and they're sitting behind wondering who this kid is who's sitting with the family at that time. But it just meant the world to me that he thought enough of me over that 3 or 4 day period to include me in his plans in his afterlife. So not his afterlife, but in his passing. So just a wonderful man that will remain very special to me. And I was his amigo that year, and he sent me a nice book with a nice inscription in it that I cherish. And I don't collect a lot of memorabilia, but that's certainly something that's very special to me. So yeah.
Hey, Kevin, Paul asked if before we go, if you could set up and have us play the 1960s interview Ward Cornell did with the owners talking about the Hockey Hall of Fame selection committee at that time.
Yeah, I would love that, Glenn. I didn't include it because I figured with Cammy and Kelly, we wouldn't have time. And sometimes I'm a little verbose, as you can tell. But don't you dare laugh, Laura Evans. But I would love it if we could play that. It's a great Hockey Night in Canada feature, and it's really interesting. Ward Cornell was one of the people who was really important in my life, at least as far as watching television goes. Bill Hewitt was doing play-by-play, and Ward Cornell, between periods, would do the interviews. And he seemed like the most unlikely man to be conducting interviews. He was a football guy through and through. But he was a man who we saw every single Saturday night when we were watching Hockey Night in Canada. So to watch Ward Cornell again talking about the selection committee and the Hockey Hall of Fame would be a real treat, Glenn. Please play that for us.
How come, gentlemen, so few are only elected each year? Frankie can answer that. I think County County, you've got the Constitution. Well, it is. That's the Hall of Fame. Really something if you can get in there, or some of us don't know how, but nevertheless, keep the bottom of the barrel. Yeah, that's right, down deep. But to get in the Hall of Fame, if you're in there, as far as the hockey player is concerned, be one of the greatest honors that they can achieve in their lifetime, and so it is made hard to get. That's my understanding of that.
That's right. And some years ago, with the commission of the Hall of Fame committee, because we broke a rule in doing so, we did put in Sillaps of Toronto, Morris Richard of Montreal, and we got one in there from Montreal, and Milt Smith of the Boston Bruins. All the rest are men who have played hockey at least 5 years in major hockey and who have been out of hockey for 5 years.
Do you think that rule will remain, or will it be changed? How do you get them to think it could be changed?
Well, I think in very exceptional circumstances that a modern player would be put in, and there wouldn't be any hardship on them, but that is what we want to do, make it hard to get in there, and I think that's a good rule.
Yeah, I agree with Connie. I think that that gorgeous building out there, when they raised those pennants, that thing was, when the Premier was there, the Prime Minister was there, I tell you, I had a terrific thrill. All the hockey and all I worked for the years, I felt great about it that day, and I'm one of the ones that advocated. I think that it should be something that should be hard to get in. You have to earn and earn your way in. As Connie said, there might be exceptional cases. Suppose fellow like Powell maybe get injured and couldn't play anymore. Well, I think the committee would put him in.
If you belong in the Hall of Fame, no matter where you came from, whether you're an amateur, whether you're a pro, you're going to be elected. But you must remember they limit us to 3 players a year. And when you think of all the wonderful players and all the wonderful players who played the game before the Hall of Fame was ever thought of, it takes a lot of getting to get into that Hall of Fame.
That fellow Howe ended up playing another year or two.
Really interesting. So let's talk a little bit about that panel. So Ward Cornell was second from the left there. Frank Selke had been an employee of the Toronto Maple Leafs under Conn Smythe and left quite unceremoniously during the Second World War. Immediately was hired by the Montreal Canadiens. So they were adversaries in the business meetings. They were adversaries as friends for quite some time. They did get to patch it up. And one of the reasons that they were able to patch it up was the Hockey Hall of Fame. 1961, Conn Smythe insisted that we've gone on long enough. The Hockey Hall of Fame needs a home. Kingston was supposed to be the home of the Hockey Hall of Fame for quite some time, and they were never able to come up with the money for an actual building. Every year they tried, they'd raise money, and they never were able to quite make it. And every year that they waited, the building supplies cost a little bit more. And so finally, Conn Smythe took it under his belt and said, "Look, we're gonna make it happen, and we're gonna make it happen in Toronto." As you can imagine, Conn Smythe saying he was the second from the right. So he brought Frank Selke on board, and Frank Selke took a major role in getting the Hockey Hall of Fame established in 1961 on the grounds of the Canadian National Exhibition. And so they patched up their differences and became dear friends. Now, Smythe and Jack Adams never really were great friends. I'm surprised they were sitting together on that dais, but nevertheless, they were all owners of teams or managers of teams. They all had voting in the meetings with the board of directors of the National Hockey League at that point. So they really were the power brokers back at the time. But yeah, they were the ones who got the Hockey Hall of Fame built on the Canadian National Exhibition grounds. Some of our viewers may have visited that place. I was there a few times. It was married with the Canada's Sports Hall of Fame for some time before they moved in 1993 and had a standalone building at the corner of Yonge and Front in downtown Toronto. And I hope some of our viewers and listeners have had a chance to visit there as well. It certainly has grown through the years and has become quite a complex, comparable to any of the great entertainment complexes in North America at this point. So really interesting to see Ward Cornell talking with the three gentlemen about the Hockey Hall of Fame.
And was it June 27th is the date for the announcement for the Hall of Fame? Is that correct?
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's when the announcement will be made, and Kelly will be getting everybody together for a media call and having the media get on. Those are always interesting calls too. They're all done by phone, or maybe by Zoom now. I'm not sure, but I think 2 years ago was by phone, and it gives them a chance to talk about where they were when they found out that they were going to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And there are fabulous stories. You heard Kelly talk about the story with Mark Messier out on a fishing boat, but there's other people who are sitting by the phone waiting because they're hoping. Others who are at their job, whether it be with an NHL team or wherever it happens to be, and the phone rings, and why would I be getting a call from Lanny McDonald or from, maybe looking for a hockey stick for a charity item or something, and to get the phone call that says you're going to become an honored member of the Hockey Hall of Fame is beyond compare. So yeah, June 27th will be that date. We'll see who gets in. It'll be quite interesting, that's for sure.
When Paul and I went to see the Willie O'Ree doc, and they had filmed it when he received his phone call, and you can't help but be emotional about it. You're so excited for him, and it's already happened, but it was just an awesome. It was like you felt like a fly on the wall. So it was a really nice experience to watch that.
That really was, wasn't it? I saw it as well. He knew that somebody had nominated him and put him forward, and they felt pretty good that he had a shot at getting in. So he sat in his home kitchen and was anxious and just rocking, waiting to find out whether that phone call was going to come or not. And sure enough, it finally did. But a finer man we could never find. And it's just lovely to see that here's a man who broke the color barrier as far as hockey goes, and did so much by way of being part of the diversity campaign with the National Hockey League. Gets his number retired by the Boston Bruins earlier this week. His number 22 up in the rafters with Phil Esposito, Bobby Orr, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just extraordinary to think this man who just happened to have a different pigment than the three of us anyway, was held back to some degree, was taunted, had to face challenges that we'll never know, and he made it to the National Hockey League as a member of the Boston Bruins. Quite a great story, and the story how he's inspired so many others since then, the Grant Fuhrs and the Wayne Simmons and all these different players who now are playing partly because Willie O'Ree opened the door for them.
Yes, definitely.
Quite a lovely man, that's for sure.
Human being.
Yeah, you bet. You know, it's we've talked so much about all of these people who get in. It's just remarkable, and then it's wonderful to see who they invite to come as well, and how a guy like Wayne Gretzky, for example, will be sitting in the crowd because Kevin Lowe is getting in, but he thinks the world of Kevin Lowe, thinks of all the players involved with the Edmonton Oilers during the 1980s. He deserved it as much as anybody, and yet it wasn't somebody who would be readily recognized as one of the leaders. You know, you think about Yeri Curry, Grant Fuhr, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier. I mean, it goes Glenn Anderson. It goes on and on and on. And then Kevin Lowe gets in too. So it was justice after all those years for him to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame too. Nice to see.
When you see line mates go in.
Absolutely. Because you know that they were a big part of the team in the dressing room, something that us as fans never get that opportunity to see. But they're there cheering their guys on, or helping them out, or bringing them up when they're down, or whatever it happens to be. So it's really nice when you see these. It's just really fun to watch the guys, get to know them, and realize that, you know, in many cases they're just like any of us. But boy, oh boy, they had a talent that, well, I'll speak for myself, but I don't have, that's for sure. Just remarkable. A lot of these guys from small towns in Saskatchewan or from Minnesota or someplace where they never dreamed of being in the Hockey Hall of Fame. They maybe dreamed of being in the National Hockey League. Maybe they dreamed about winning a Stanley Cup, but boy, oh boy, they never dreamt so far as to think that they could be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. The honor doesn't get any greater than that. And to have that portrait done by Paul Riley and in the actual hall in perpetuity is pretty remarkable. Yeah, for sure. Very good. Well, why don't we wrap it up as far as the presentation goes? Maybe we'll leave it open so that people can debate or do whatever that they want to do on the calls after that. Unfortunate that we didn't get Cammy, but hopefully we'll get her at another time and see if we can't get her to talk about not only her Hockey Hall of Fame induction, not only the selection committee, but being a scout for the Seattle Kraken and all the implications as that involves as well. Talk about breaking the glass ceiling. There's a woman right there who did exactly that. Gold medal in 1998, and the very, very first time that the Winter Olympics allowed women to play hockey, and she was the captain of Team USA that year, beating her the adversaries from Team Canada. So just a remarkable career for her. Nice to see that her brother Don is coaching in Buffalo and doing surprisingly well for a team that a lot of people counted out. And her brother Tony, who had a great NHL career as well. Here she is winning the face-off against Tony Granato. Unbelievable. The only person ever to do that. There we go. So I'm sure that Cammy got tied up with Seattle Kraken responsibilities, and when it comes down to it, or home responsibilities, that takes precedence. But we'd like to think that maybe she can come back and join us on Hockey Time Machine another time.
Yes, and thank you so much to Kelly for spending so much time with us and going into so much detail. It was a really great show, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, she's a special lady. So I'm just going to say that she takes a lower profile. So to get her on here took a fair bit of tugging and pulling. You know, are you sure you want me? I don't know if I know enough about it. Are you kidding me, Kelly? You're the one who orders the drink, for goodness sake. But she's really, really quite remarkable. But shy and doesn't like to take the spotlight. But boy, when we thrust the spotlight on her, she certainly delivered.
So much.
Okay, take us out, Laura.
Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you to Glenn and Paul and Kevin. It's always appreciated for all your hard work. I do want to do one thing. If you like this show, could you please press the like button? And if you want to see when we go live, press the button that says subscribe and the little bell on top, and then you'll get notified every time we go live every week. And a quick shout out. We just want to say, best wishes to our friend Ralph Mellenby, who is not feeling well at this moment. So we love you dearly, and we wish you a speedy recovery. And Hockey Time Machine is very special to him, and we just think the world of him. So wishing you all the best, Ralph.
Very good.
Good night, guys.
Everybody, good night.